The Megamycete has become a crucial part of the Resident Evil lore, specifically with the last two Resident Evil numbered titles, Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. The Megamycete is a fungi, a mold that existed underneath Romania in the village that we explore in Resident Evil 8. And it was used by Mother Miranda to try to bring back her daughter Eva. The Megamycete is very unique in that it effectively connects with a person's subconscious, the person's mind, and uses it as a weapon against them. We see this with Evelyn, where she is able to use and manipulate people's souls, people's minds, to do her own bidding, to infect them in some sort of way. Resident Evil 8 does something similar, but this time they use something known as the Cadeau, a parasite that Mother Miranda implants into certain individuals to try and experiment on them to try to find that last piece of the puzzle to revive her daughter Eva. But all of this is going to somehow connect to Resident Evil 9, and in this video I'm going to explain just a little bit about how exactly I think that will occur. So let's start off with the zombies that you meet in Resident Evil 9. Zombies and Resident Evil, they're a perfect match. They've been constant throughout the series, especially because they literally were in RE1. They're a staple to the Resident Evil franchise. But as we all know, zombies have always just been aggressive. They really were mindless. They don't have like a purpose. They just go, exist, and eat anything that is remotely alive. They devour them, infect them, and they're just mindless. They don't really have a purpose. But the zombies in Resident Evil 9 seem different in a way. And part of that is the ability to retain something of their past self. In the most recent Resident Evil showcase, one of the developers of the game talked about how the zombies that you will encounter in Resident Evil 9 retain something of their past self, such as the cleaning lady zombie aggressively cleaning a mirror, right? She's cleaning a mirror because that's what she did when she was alive. They even mentioned that a janitor who turned into a zombie will be sweeping the hallways because that's what they remembered, or that's what they were doing when they were alive. That was their job. And then if you take a closer look at the expressions of the zombies, they look sad. They look like they're regretting what they're doing. They regret and feel tormented by what they're doing. They don't want to attack Grace. You know, you don't have that kind of sad expression if you mean to harm somebody. It just seems like they know what they're doing at some level, and they hate that they're attacking her. Now, this is all just a theory. I don't know exactly why they're sad, even to the point where one of them is crying. But what if that is how you evolve the T-virus, the virus that creates zombies? What if that's what you have to do? You have to give these BOWs a little level of some sort of subconscious of their former human self to make these bioweapons even stronger. Because zombies, mindless, they go out, eat, and they barely listen to command to anybody, right? But if you allow them to retain some of the human elements, some sort of subconscious, you then can control them in a way where they do have a purpose. For example, if you infect someone with this new virus that at least has some sort of subconscious or allows them to retain something of their former self, then you are able to transform like military soldiers, mercenaries, into these enhanced bioweapons, but they retain their former self, and then they are able to go out and attack their enemies and at least have a purpose because they retain or know what they have to do. If it's the military fighting a war, guess what? The military will fight the war, and they will do so with at least some level of subconscious to them, and they will retain their abilities, what they're doing, who they should listen to, and all of that. That creates a very effective bioweapon that companies can sell to people. That's how you evolve a virus like the T-virus into that next level. We already seen, a level of control with such as Nemesis, but I think if you're able to do that with like the very smaller or like the minor level monsters, you literally achieve something that likely everyone has been trying to do for a long time with these viruses. So how can they possibly do that? Well, Capcom loves their trilogies. They love Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 and how they all connect, aka the T-Virus connects them all. Then you have 4, 5, and 6. What is the main connection between the three? Parasites. 7, 8, and 9 is the mold. The mold is a very unique fungi that really showcases the ability to infect someone's own mind, their subconscious. We know this because that's what the Connections, this crime syndicate, was trying to do. They were trying to create bioweapons that focus on mind control, which is what Evelyn became. And then we see in Resident Evil 7, there's a scene of Jack talking with Ethan in this really weird space where he's telling him that no, we did nothing wrong, we were innocent in all this, Evelyn is the one that made us all of this. Jack in this scene talks about how Evelyn, using the power of the mold, is able to force into your mind and soul, and you can't fight back. You know what you are doing, but you can't fight back, similar to how Jill felt in Resident Evil 5 and what Wesker did to her. And then in Resident Evil 8, the same thing, where Ethan meets Evelyn, and because he's able to see her, that tells you that he is connected with the mold. The mold keeps like a library of subconsciousness. It keeps like memories of everyone who has ever been infected by the mold. It's like a library of sorts. And we see this in the Rose DLC, where Rose goes into this space where the mold showcases different people who have been infected by the mold, such as Mother Miranda, Evelyn, even meeting her own dad. That's how she was able to meet him, because she too has the mold within her, because that's what the mold is able to do. It retains all of that. And that's where, by using the mold and then using the T-Virus as a base, mutating the T-Virus with the mold creates these zombies that at least have a small shred of their subconscious, to the point that they retain their habits back when they were alive. And I think that's what Dr. Gideon has been doing. He has been experimenting with not only the T-Virus, which he has connections because he was a former Umbrella scientist, but also because he was able to use the mold to transform this virus into what we see in Resident Evil 9. So how was Dr. Gideon, or whoever is the main villain of Resident Evil 9, who likely Gideon works under, was able to obtain the Megamycete? Like I mentioned before, we destroyed the Megamycete in Resident Evil Village when we blew it up alongside the village that we explored during Resident Evil Village. I think the source, or at least where he's getting the Megamycete from, is a company that we actually know pretty much a lot about, because we know what they've been experimenting on. We know what they've been doing in one of the previous titles. In Resident Evil 7, we learn about a international crime syndicate known as the Connections. Mia worked with the Connections to work on the experimentation done on Evelyn. And the Connections are trying very hard to find some sort of bioweapon, using mind control as a weapon. If the Megamycete has found a way as a fungi to attack the subconscious, or like the consciousness and minds of individuals it infects, is more than likely that's what's causing this effect on the zombies that we see in Resident Evil 9. The Connections was founded by a man named Brandon Bailey. He was a virologist and a protege of James Marcus, and became one of the founding members of the Umbrella Pharmaceuticals Company. And that's where I think we're gonna learn that Brandon Bailey is going to be the main villain of Resident Evil 9. Brandon Bailey founded the Connections and tries very hard to use his company and his influence to create bioweapons, specifically under mind control. Dr. Gideon, who has connections with Umbrella, so it definitely does make sense that he will have knowledge, or at least have something related or in connection to the T-Virus. And being that Brandon Bailey could be his benefactor of the Connections, he uses both the T-Virus and the Megamycete to create these new form of zombies, these new bioweapons, this Elpis, if we assume that Elpis is the new virus. Since both Brandon Bailey and Dr. Gideon had ties and actually worked under Umbrella, it's very likely they have some sort of communication with each other. And by using the data, the information that the connections have done over on Evelyn and every single piece of research they have ever done in regards to the Megamycete, Mother Miranda and such, likely stored somewhere, it's very possible that Brandon Bailey is the benefactor for Dr. Gideon and is selling or giving Dr. Gideon all the data about the mold, the Megamycete, and then using it with the T-virus that they also likely have, and creating these new zombies, these new monsters in a very similar fashion to the ones we've seen in Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, and now what we're seeing with Resident Evil 9. It's also possible that if Brandon Bailey is infected by the mold, or maybe even the way Dr. Gideon looks like, maybe they're all doing this. Maybe they need Grace's blood in order to return them back to their normal selves, or maybe upgrade themselves into these more powerful bioweapons. Or maybe what they're trying to do is trying to make themselves even stronger. Because what we do know with the mold and everything else is that it does have side effects, such as what happens with Evelyn in RE7. Or a side effect like in RE8 with the members of Miranda's family have experienced when she experimented on them with the Cadeau and stuff. Maybe this is why they need Grace's blood, because it's the only way to reverse all of this, to reverse these side effects that they are dealing with. And that's why you see Gideon panicking and really trying to get Grace. I think Brandon Bailey, assuming he is zombified, assuming he uses or used some sort of experimentation on himself to become a monster that then works with Dr. Gideon, is likely the main villain of Resident Evil 9. We have known about the connection since Resident Evil 7. They've been concurrent throughout everything that revolves around the Megamycete, so it kind of makes sense that Brandon Bailey, who has connections with Umbrella, something specific that Capcom has been telling us that there will be connections and return to Raccoon City with where Umbrella was located, and all of it would connect to each other. One of the founding members of Umbrella would be a perfect villain, main villain for RE9. So I think that's where they're heading, and it makes sense that it's all connected via the Megamycete, the connections, Dr. Gideon, the T-virus, Umbrella, all of it connects to whatever the story is going to be in RE9. So that's what I think is going on with these new zombies, and how I'm connecting it all with the trilogy, with Lucas Baker, with the mold, and all that stuff. We'll see soon enough on February 27 if any of this is true or not. Again, it's a theory, but it'll be awesome if it is true, of course. But we'll see. I can't wait to discover and read more about the stuff that happened and read all the documents. That's one of the funnest parts of Resident Evil, so I can't wait. But let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.